we're back with Still Left Out, and I'm really very excited for this episode because a guy I've been following on Facebook for eons is joining us. He's had a Facebook page called Occupy Homeless. When did you first put Occupy Homeless up?
Right there when Occupy Wall Street started, within a month probably.
Wow, so that was 2011 or something?
11. September,
Yeah.
October probably, October of 2011.
Yeah, so it's been up quite a while, and I've been following it. I get a lot of news from it. I get a lot of information about what's going on. On the Facebook page, your superhero name is Gnat.
Yes, I'm Gnat. This is Gnat.
Superhero Gnat. So like Ant-Man, kind of.
Yep. That's exactly where it came from. Small, insignificant, mostly invisible bug. And my intent was to bug people. And it's a disguise, much like the hat and stuff, glasses I'm wearing right now. I just wanted to speak from my heart, speak freely. This is what's going on. This is who we really are. This is who homeless people are. We're not some effing cliche. There's a million reasons that a million people have become homeless, and we, as a society, do not know that. We do not acknowledge the humanity of people sleeping on our streets. And I no longer think this is merely luck or accident. I know it's not laziness. When it takes all day to wash the clothes on your back and get one meal, that's not laziness. That's a lot of damn work for very little outcome. Being poor is hard. I learned that the hard way and the easy way. I can make a whole lot of stuff with nothing, and I can make a whole lot better with a little.
So how long was your journey on the street?
I got out of the Navy. I wish I'd have said Navy. In 1980. And I had married a woman while we were in the military. And once we were civilians, things just weren't the same, and it didn't work out. And I was divorced soon after that. And that kind of the combination of I was a civilian, then the military, now I'm divorced. It kind of messed with my head a little bit. I gravitated towards construction work. If we recall, 1980s were a little bit difficult for jobs, a lot of problems in the world. So I ended up homeless, but I didn't see it as homelessness. I didn't see it, I just saw it as a bump, this thing happened. Okay, well, you just put it all back together. Well, that kept repeating, and often it was things like the car broke down or something went wrong, and it took all of my resources to pay one bill, and that caused other bills to, it's the same story everywhere. You can't work hard enough, make enough money, and pay your bills to succeed. You just can't do it in this culture. I guess some people get lucky. They land with one job and everything's fine. You can't do that in construction. Can't do that in what they call a gig economy now.
Yeah.
It's just madness. It's madness.
It would be hard for me to put a finger on how many Uber drivers I've had in shelters. How many, I mean, people don't even imagine that the person who picked them up for their Uber is homeless.
That's right.
But I can testify that they are because they lived in the shelter.
Well, I guess the most shocking thing was to find a retired tenured professor who looks like a wino on the streets. And I'm watching this guy, and he's not a drunk. I could tell. He's elderly. He was probably in his late 80s when I met him.
Oh.
And it took a minute to get next to him because the world had just so discarded him. He was beaten down. And the first words he said to me is, if you're going to continue to bother me, young man, you're going to need to call me professor. And I laughed, and he goes, see, that's the problem. You think I'm joking. And the way he said it, the clearness of his eyes, I'm like, okay, tell me your story. And I'm like, the world did what to you? And I was shocked. This man had been famous in the town where he was at, owned what a top level professor would own, and he outlived his family and friends. And someone took advantage of his kindness and became a millionaire out of his gift. They literally just extracted everything from him and left him as a wino in his own town, and no one believed him. I looked into the guy. His story checked out.
Yeah.
His story
We had
checked
a
out.
guy in the town where I lived that they called the professor because he also was a professor. People would cross the street to avoid him because he was so odoriferous.
Yeah,
And,
yeah.
And his life had hit a tragedy that was it couldn't recover from it. He just couldn't recover from it. He actually wasn't homeless. He just wasn't taking care of himself. You know, the town is cruel. Like, people I know in town just called him Stinky, which was a level of cruelty that, and maybe that's where you start when you're working on homelessness is, okay, we're going to first have surgery and remove every cruel bone in your body, and then maybe we can start talking to you about the issue.
Right.
So what have you run into in this 9 years of running the Occupy Homeless? What's your big takeaway from trying to educate the world for 9 years?
People, Mark Twain said, it's easier to fool people than it is to convince them that they have been fooled. And he's right. We'll hang on to lies we think are truths despite overwhelming evidence to the contrary. I literally could sit here all day long and tell you stories about people who are not what everybody else seems to think they are. And I just keep trying to press the truth. We are you, literally. The homeless people are you, middle class and upper middle class, across the spectrum. And something knocked us out of the thing. And there are no safety nets. There are no safety nets. The United States is a joke when it comes to, we're going to help our poor. The churches are the biggest joke. I've been abused by churches that meant well. Come stay on our rescue mission and work 8-10 hours a day. We'll give you $1 a week for your time. And then ridicule you every Sunday for the sin that caused me to be sitting in your rescue mission. Bullshit. You're making a ton of money. I'm not stupid. You're getting all this stuff free. You're getting donations every week from these people, and you tell them, you literally trot my ass out on your stage to go, look at how well we're taking care of this guy, but you've locked me in a poverty trap that I can't escape from, and that is an affront to the Jesus I understand. And they don't want to hear that either, of course.
No. So and I can't say enough bad stuff about missions, so we're on the same page. We're on the same page with that one.
Shelters and missions are both there to make money for the people to operate them. Period. They're not designed to help, and that's a flaw of capitalism, I suppose, and or the church. I don't know.
Well, that's what I always thought was when I was running shelters was I was providing housing to a cheap labor force. Yeah. Because my residents had jobs. Their jobs just didn't pay enough for them to live anywhere, and so. Amen. By having a shelter, we were providing a cheap labor force to the power retailers and the fast food joints. But I want to kind of focus maybe a little on the personal journey of being non-traditionally housed
Okay.
They have so many nice ways to put it now.
Sure.
You
Yeah.
know, the emotional toll of waking up one day and realizing you got nowhere to go.
Hmm.
Are you a different person from before when that happened to you? And how did it change you, do you think?
Uh, yeah, I'm different. I'm different in a lot of ways. My appearance is shot. My health is shot. Um, um, I had to learn things I didn't expect I have to learn. I know how to be my own counselor, my own therapist, although I've had help in those areas also. Um, I use mindfulness skills just to do my day to day. In order to speak on these topics, I did have to develop a character, staying in character and not letting that character become me was a challenge. They've blended. And I think that was probably part of the process that I needed to walk through to become fully me. So I'm going to say, in the bigger picture, this has all been a blessing. It's all been for a purpose probably greater than I might have done otherwise. My only dream in life was to just own a nice little 2-bedroom, 3-bedroom house, a couple of kids, a couple of dogs, little yard. House needs work. I'm going to work on it. That's, part of my thing. I'm mowing the grass, planting flowers, waving hi to the neighbors. I got a white picket fence, seriously. Um, Certainly had no aspiration to be rich and famous, although that almost happened 2 different times. This might make the third time. Um, yeah, it changed me in good ways and bad. I'm a I'm bitter some days. At the same time, I still have a sense of humor. I try to joke about it all. I make my personal Facebook page at least twice a day. I try to do or say something humorous, even if it's dark humor. Um, Keeps me sane.
Yeah.
We're all a bunch of fools. We are humans.
So you were talking to me earlier
Mhm.
about the first time you understood that you were actually going to, and you've been helping me with my new project, which is a book on food insecurity. And you taught me some things. I mean, I've seen an awful lot in my years in the shelter, but you taught me things I didn't know because you don't spend every moment with people living nowhere to realize how hard they struggle. And when you realized that you were so desperate for food that you would actually go take something out of the trash,
That
that
was a
was,
big moment.
yeah. So if you can tell me a little about, that must have been hungry, huh? So that's a level of hungry 99% of people don't know.
Yeah. I've I I've always been a rather thin, lean person, even in my healthiest life years. But I'm still the guy who's taken in 4,000 calories and burning them. Um, I'm very active. Um, at 62, my body, other than the other bigger problems, I'm still in nice shape. Um, Still very active, in spite of rheumatoid arthritis that's twisted up much of my body. Um, anyway, go 3 days with no food isn't easy, especially if you also don't have water and other things like that. You need food and water to survive. And getting to someplace like a shelter or whatever that's going to feed you is time dependent. So if you're trying to work and struggle, get over here to get a lost ID or whatever, because you're going to lose all your shit when you're homeless. Somebody's going to steal your backpack if you let it go. And since I try not to look homeless, I'm dependent on leaving that stuff somewhere. If you don't hide it good, someone's going to get it. So now you're trying to put your life back together. You're starving to death. You missed the rescue mission because of the line at the DMV or whatever. And attractive businesswoman walking down the street, and I watched her drop that sandwich right in the trash can. I'm going, I would eat behind that person. If she was a friend, I would have no problem sharing that sandwich. I picked that sandwich up. And the guilt of eating out of that trash can, I puked. It was less than 12 hours later, I ate behind somebody else, and I didn't give a fuck anymore. Excuse my language. I didn't care. I had to eat. From that point, I started paying a whole lot more attention to actual survival skills. Growing up in the military, being in the military, I know how to find food. Since then, I've studied. I can show you plants in your yard that are edible. And I, in fact, now harvest what most people call weeds. I use as medicine and or food. It helps to offset the budget. And more importantly, it's actually good for you. So this poverty thing, this homeless business is it's taking me down some paths I don't know that I would have gone. I'm glad I'm a reader. I like to study stuff. It helps. I'm an amateur historian. I loved your book. I loved your book, Daddy. What was it, Daddy? What?
Daddy,
what is the middle class? I love that book. That's a good answer to that question. It was.
Thank you. After doing that book, I got my definition, my personal definition of what the middle class is. And my definition is you get old and you get to live in your house.
Yeah.
Whether it's an apartment or a house or whatever,
yeah.
You get old and you get to stay where you were.
Yeah.
And you don't end up, the turned out old people, like your professor you spoke of, there are so many of them.
Yeah.
It's the shame of eating out of the trash can. That wasn't your shame. That was our shame. That was society's shame.
Yeah,
You felt it, but it's not yours.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And that's the only reason I could keep going is, this isn't my fault. It isn't my fault. And that person who dropped that sandwich, whether they know it or not, they just saved my ass, at least for a minute. And I had to find gratitude in that. I had to fight to live.
Yeah. And you fight for other people. That's the other thing about your Gnat personality that I really like, is you are a fighter. I can't count on one hand the number of homeless people or people who have experienced homelessness that are willing to say it's not their fault, because the world has convinced them it was, and they buy a little bit of it,
Right.
And it's like, stop buying it.
Well, it's not easy. I mean, even on the Occupy Homeless today, somebody's, over there trying to poor shame people, What do you say? You just want to lay around smoke. What do you say? Smoke dope, lay around. You lazy bums want to lay around, smoke dope, and have somebody hand you something. This is today. This is every day. And at some point, I kind of laugh at them. I joke them. I throw some serious information at them. I encourage other people around me to speak truth at that bullshit and do it as gently as you can and as hard as you need to. And don't stop. Don't let them stop you. Don't let them stop you. That's what they want.
Mhm.
And that's what they want. They want to silence the problem. And apparently, I'm the problem for wanting to be able to work through my life and end up with a nice little house, a car, and retirement. I can go to the beach and just live life, you know. I succeeded. I did this wonderful job for the man, and the man's going to take care of me now. The man's not going to take care of you.
Yeah.
He's just not.
Yeah. That was one of the things when I was back in my journalism days when uh, I was from Maine, and the big companies in Maine. Maine was just a colony. Maine was just a place people went to steal natural resources. And so
Right.
back in the day, there were paper companies, Warren Paper or Lincoln Pulp and Paper, and
Right.
they had strong labor unions. And in this one town, they called the Warren Paper Company Mother Warren, because Warren, the good jobs that were secured by labor unions paid, education stipends. They helped people educate their children. It felt like your company was Mother Warren. It was taking care of you, but it wasn't. It was the labor union that fought for those things. It was the loss of life time after time in these different situations that fought for these. So when huge multinational corporations came in and bought out Lincoln Pulp and Paper and Warren Paper and all these companies and started screwing the worker, it was so easy. It was so easy because talking against the paper companies was sacrilege. And
That's
so
right.
these exploitative, just just huge bottom line driven, dividend to stockholder driven, predators just robbed people of everything they had, and then finally their jobs as well.
And they hate us for telling the truth. Why? Why? I mean, I'm glad that he could have four mansions and two yachts and nice car and all that. No, that's no, no. I'm sorry, no, no. Capitalism's going to kill itself. I mean, I can't imagine. I don't understand how the heck it made it this far. And I'm not anti-capitalism. And I'm certainly not anti-making money. God bless. I love money, and I've put myself in position. I'm getting free wood right now. Tree Service has no place to dump this wood, and I'm like, I've got somewhere for you to dump that wood, branches, and everything. So now I have too much firewood. So there are people in the region that are going to get free firewood because I can give away free firewood.
Right.
And I'm probably too old to be doing that shit, but we heat with firewood, so it's just gonna be a little extra labor for me. And I hope to push that enough that I can actually start selling some firewood also, because I have to pay for Occupy Homeless somehow.
Yeah. Well, that's a good question. Is there a way that people can donate to Occupy Homeless?
I don't even know if that link works anymore. It used to be on the website. Haven't. I had when I first got my Social Security disability check, they hand you a ton of money and you have 60 days to spend it all.
Yeah.
Or they take it back. What the fuck is that? Anyway, I knew that was coming and had an idea how much they were going to do. I purchased a good used car and a really good laptop. I got a nice cheap apartment. Turned out that neighborhood was dangerous, drug infested, this, that, and this. And I probably would have gotten into trouble defending myself if I had stayed in that. And we decided to take a chance on the job. The job fell through. That left us homeless. And that killed my nice laptop. When I had the laptop and a little more resources. I did put together the occupyhomeless.com. We paid for that out of our disability checks. Um, but I haven't had the equipment for quite a while, and I don't have the time anymore. So .com's still sitting there, and I pay, what is it, 150 a year just to keep that on. But I don't have any webmaster or anybody to take care of that for me. There was a PayPal donation button on that, and we've been given a little bit here and there. A few people who became friends have astonished us on several occasions. A month or two in a motel, as an example.
Yeah. So let's, when I get off this, when we're done with our interview, I'll go check out your PayPal link and see if I can send you a few bucks and see if it works. And then we'll, if it does, we'll put that in the credits of this conversation.
I appreciate that.
Well, it's my honor to do so. The other thing we're going to do is, if not, let's see, after this, we'll talk some more. We'll find out what you need. And we'll make that list available to people, because there's a whole host of really good people that help me help people. And they're just waiting for me to give them a chance.
Can I say, I don't like asking for help. I don't like handouts. Does that make any sense?
It makes perfect sense. And I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about investments. These people are going to make an investment in getting your word, your truth, the truth of millions of people, a truth you share with millions of people who are feeling shame, that don't deserve it, who need someone to stick up for them, for the jackasses who need a cup of shut up. You know, it's an investment in some cups of shut up. That's all.
Okay.
So and literally, there are people who, they remind me of my mom. My mom was absolutely wonderful, but she was also, what we say in Maine, woods queer. My mother liked being left alone. She just liked being left alone. So if I was going to do something for somebody, she'd give me the money, and then she wouldn't have to do anything. She'd say, I used to cook for the shelter, and the third Tuesday of the month and every third Monday of every month, she'd give me the money to buy the groceries so I could cook the food for the shelter. She didn't want to go. She didn't want to meet the people. She liked being left alone, but and I know a lot of people that are really good that way, that'll help. Little Genevieves, they're scattered all over. So let's see what, you know, maybe somebody's got something in their office that they haven't used in 6 months. They don't need it, and they just as soon send this new laptop to you or whatever. Who knows what's out there? Milk of human kindness. We're just going to go out and milk it a little.
Well, I try to tell people that this whole giving thing is a two-way street, because it is. It's kind of hard to give from your heart if you're not willing to receive from your heart. But I still don't like putting it out there. There's just so many problems with the whole thing, you know. People have tried to push me to be a 501(c), and I'm like, that's going to cost money and time. I don't have time to mess with it. I'm just trying to do a job here. If you guys want to turn this into something, please do help me do that.
Right.
But if you hand me $20 and I need food, and you thought I was going to buy phone minutes, we're going to have a problem.
That's the thing about it, right? They're not supposed to put all these strings on it.
Yeah. I know how much I've put into this. I mean, if people knew how many hours I put into this, they would be like, you're an idiot. You can't work for free for that many years. And I'm like, well, you know, I can't quit now because I've already put in these hours, and I feel like it's still growing, and I have new fans. I mean, we're hitting at 100 new likes a week. People freaking love Gnat, and I have no idea why that's going on, but I'm kind of glad. I'm still shy about the whole thing. You know, I didn't want to be famous for being a homeless guy. I just didn't. Yeah.
Well, you know, we made a film showing some elders that were experiencing homelessness, and I really wanted to make it because I just felt like people don't get it. You know, you can't retire in this country anymore. You can't get old.
You
You
can't.
can't
You
get
can't.
sick. You can't.
You
So I
can't.
wanted,
Yeah.
but one of the guys that was in our film who was so articulate and really kind of explained the problem and ended up becoming the narrator of this little film, he doesn't want people to know that about him anymore.
Mm-hmm.
I don't show that film anymore because nobody's got more right to his privacy than this guy does. But that's what happens. You know, you want to put this unpleasant time behind you, but you haven't done that. You've been building this world where being down and out is acceptable and not something to be shamed for. And I don't want you to stop. You know, you've helped me get my story, the truth I know. You've given me smarter ways to tell it, and we need people like each other. You know, we need each other. So if you don't like to ask for things, you don't worry about it, sweetie pie, because I'm great at it.
Okay.
I got no problems.
Okay.
All right, we'll work out that end of the partnership. Well, you know, we real quick, we want to talk about one thing, and then we'll let you go and follow up maybe in a couple of months and do another one of these. But you had a kind of a message about all this temp work and people who are working at the warehouses. That seems to be the new coal mine, right? All the jobs are now are people who go work 12 or 14 hours, get their temperature taken on the way in, and then promise that they won't get COVID while they're standing there mailing toothbrushes and dog food to people. But those people don't have anywhere to live.
They don't have a place at all. And you literally have to get in there, stay on the street for an extended amount of time to be able to identify other people that are in a similar situation. We move different. We're looking at people. We're doing this and this and that and that, and disguising ourselves. Because, you know, if your employer finds out that you're homeless, you're probably not going to get a job. I've been turned away from a job, and I'm like, how come you didn't? You just said that my resume and everything, I was a perfect fit, and then you tell me I can't have the job. I'd like for you to explain that. She goes, off the record, the address you gave me is a rescue mission. And I investigated through that, and literally they have blacklisted all these areas that they won't hire you if you fall into these parameters, period. It doesn't matter how great your resume is. And I was like, holy fuck, lady, did you just... And I don't think she meant to give up that much information to me. I don't think she understood who she was talking to, which was cool with me. Anyways, back to people being unemployed or employed and homeless. McDonald's, Walmart. If you'll look at Walmart, you'll see they almost always build out on the edge of town. There's always a lot of woods around them. If you get in those woods, you're going to find a homeless camp. And if you start talking to those people, you're going to find out they work for Walmart. Turns out, and bless their hearts, they didn't want to tell me. I pressured some Walmart employees into giving me more information than they wanted to. They get a discount on camping equipment. Walmart knows that these people live back there. I think it's part of their business model. And now my friend in the Washington State, Seattle, Portland area sends me a Google map of Amazon up there where the factory is. Now all this stuff's going on, and right next door, I mean literally right next door on daggone Amazon property is a KOA campground. And my friend out there is like, you know, those are Uber drivers. Those are people that work in and out of Amazon. This is modern day Hoovervilles. Swear to, there ain't no other name for it. This is modern day. The freaking robber barons remarketed themselves and sold us down the road one more time. And this is all over this country, all over it.
Yeah. You're 100% correct. And you know, when they were pouring the milk out post-COVID, when it first broke and they were pouring the milk out, all I could think of was the scene in The Grapes of Wrath when the family is starving and they're burning the oranges. Remember that? They're burning the oranges and the families in the Hooverville are starving, and then we're pouring the milk out. And it's the same thing. It's the same thing over and over. We don't have the worst poverty in the world. I've been to Guatemala and the Palestinian territory and all that stuff. We just have the most unnecessary. We have this scourge that the whole world's, the whole country sort of like, yeah, well, that's an acceptable amount of loss. Those lives, those destroyed lives, that's an acceptable amount of loss, right?
No, I strongly disagree with that. I mean, there's no. We should have literally the best schools, the best medical, the best right down the flipping line, and nobody would be poor in this country. There's no excuse for it. I could do simple math. This isn't complicated. This is not complicated. And I'm sure you know, you can roll right through history. At this point, these people did these things. All this money went from these people to those people. And I am, this is greed. That's all it is. And it's everybody from the top 10% down, probably. I don't even know if it's the top 10%. It's probably only the top 2% that's the real problem here. And they don't see it as a problem. That anybody below that top 2% can agree that they need that kind of wealth is mind-boggling. You know, this isn't how you build a working society. And right. Aristotle, what did he say? Poverty is the mother of revolution and crime. Poverty.
Yep. That's the single factor that raises crime the most, poverty. You know, I love talking to you, Nat. I can't thank you enough for taking the time to be with me today. And we are going to check in with Patrice Pickering. She's going to tell us a little about the money that's been made available from the CARES Act for homeless prevention. So we're going to go over and check in with her. But I'll tell you, Nat, you're a rock star. You're amazing. I love you. I love you. And I'm grateful for you. You make me rejoice. You're a warrior.
Thank you.
Right.
It's hard to hear, but thank you.
Maybe I'll just keep telling you so you get used to it. All right, so we're going to check in with you another time in a little while. And in the meantime, watch for the credits because we're going to have all that information about how you can help Nat get Occupy Homeless into a nice solid footing, and he can go on with it till he's a wizened old man. We're going to do our weekly check-in with a local hero. This week's hero is Patrice Pickering. Hey, Patrice, how are you?
Good afternoon. I'm well. Thank you.
That's great. Now, you run the Homeless Assistance Program here locally in Cumberland County, Pennsylvania, but there's someone like you pretty much in all the regions of the country, right?
Well, there should be. Even in Pennsylvania, there are a couple counties that don't have a homeless assistance person, but there should be someone through Human Services that should be able to work with those issues.
Right. So if you can just try and ferret that out in your local community. Otherwise, of course, if you need help, you can contact us and I'll try and find that out for you for your local region. So tell us what the Homeless Assistance Program does, what it's like right now with COVID and all the changes that's caused.
Well, the Homeless Assistance Program is a state-funded program, and it is to help people who are homeless or near homeless. And near homeless would mean getting a notice to quit or going through an eviction. And what we try to do is either keep people in their houses or to get them off the streets and provide them with a security deposit or a first month's rent to get them started in a new home. So what we try to do is help as many people as we possibly can, because we really want people housed and staying housed. We do interviews with folks. We offer them case management for up to 2 years, and that means working on their personal goals or family goals. We work on their budgets to help them sustain the place that they're in. We help them with needs like transportation, any kind of counseling for drug and alcohol, mental health, IDD, domestic violence supports. So we want to do a holistic program for them and make sure that it's available when they need it, and
so, and that's a really important point that you're making, is that there are as many reasons why people might be on the verge of homelessness as there are people.
correct.
So you have to wear a lot of hats. You know, one minute you've got someone fleeing domestic violence, the next minute you've got a person who's developmentally delayed whose parent has passed, and then they don't know how they're going to pay their rent.
Correct. Or both, you know, it's combos. And I think what we try to do is we work, anyone that calls us or walks through the door when we're open now, we try to treat them with open arms and respect. We don't know their story, we don't know their history, but at least they're being proactive in asking for help. So if we cannot offer them some financial help, we want to give them some types of supports that they have wrapped around them before they leave.
So, and what percentage of the people that walk in do you think, and this is anecdotal, so nobody will hold you to it, but walk in and you say, hey, look, I think I'm going to be able to help you stay where you are. We're going to get your electric bill under control, or whatever it is that's.
You know, that's interesting. It's getting less and less, seeing less people that really can manage. I would say 15 to 20% at this point. With COVID, it's been really, really interesting. We haven't had a whole lot of phone calls like we used to, but now that the moratorium in Pennsylvania is going to be lifted for the rents, we are seeing that people are starting to call in, and they haven't done anything to change their situation and prepare for the future. So they are either so behind on rent, or it wasn't COVID related. And I actually have 2 funds that I can tap into right now. One being my regular homeless assistance funding that's available throughout the year, and the other being a homeless assistance CARES funding specifically for those who have been affected by COVID. So I asked the state if we could blend those funds if people needed more money, and they did give me permission for that. So I have 2 pots, but here's what's happening. A lot of people are not COVID related. A lot of people have called in. I've set up appointments and they're no shows. I don't understand that, and they don't call back. And then we've had some people who have tried to make things in their own definition of COVID, and it doesn't fall under that. Those that have maybe 5 or 6 months of back rent, we're actually sending over to the Housing and Redevelopment Authority for their PFHA money, because they have at least 6 months that they could pay for if the people qualify and if their landlord wants to participate in that program. So there is money right now. There's a lot of money right now. It's short, very, very short term, and that's disturbing because the winter months are coming. And I know our last appointment for our COVID will end the last week of October, because this money has to be allocated in November.
Wow, that seems crazy, doesn't it?
It is, yeah.
Wow. Well, I imagine that landlords are excited at the notion of not just taking it on the chin. I mean, it's no fun to get no rent for 6 months and then also lose the tenant. So if you could be made somewhat or whole, then I would think that would be more the better. It's just such a hard time.
They will work with us, but I have found through some phone calls that are coming through now, some landlords are not renewing leases, and a lot of properties are starting to increase their rents for the new lease at least $130 or more.
Wow.
I think they're trying to make up for lost funds or anticipating that it's going to be a rough winter.
Right, and they're now, with so many people needing a place, they're able to kind of raise the price because the people who can pay will pay it because of.
Correct.
Yeah. Well, Patrice, this is great. Thanks for the check-in. We're going to check in with you fairly regularly, so maybe again, at least by November, we should check in and see if new money's made available or what the next step is.
Sure. I'll be here.
Wonderful. Thanks, Patrice.
Stay well.